Like all the videos on Saigancat's channel are made possible by fans like you. Totally.
Good morning, everybody. Saigan here, and I want to talk about The Last Guardian. This is in particular being caused because of IGN's review of the game on YouTube. And I know it's fun to poke fun at IGN. They very, very clearly take money for good reviews. And oftentimes they are very, very critical of certain things, and they give a game sometimes lower scores than they deserve because maybe they didn't receive money, maybe it's just a bad reviewer. IGN and GameSpot and a lot of those big review sites aren't always trustworthy, and that's one of the reasons why this modern age of YouTube and the internet is so great, because you can go and you can get review scores from anyone, and you can watch a Let's Play, and you can see what the game is actually like. And I do suggest, well, actually, there's going to be Last Guardian footage playing, so you can see here what Last Guardian plays like. I'm going to be showing the first portions of the game, not really any spoilers, although I guess you'll see how to get through some fairly simple puzzles. Spoiler, there are no hard puzzles in Last Guardian. Only frustrating ones where the mechanics aren't clear. Anyhow, IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. And I want to be clear, I completely agree with their review. They're receiving a lot of hate for this review. There's a lot of Last Guardian Ueda fanboys and girls out there who are calling this game of the year, best game ever, best game in the trilogy. It's an amazing end to the trilogy, etc., 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 etc. First of all, saying that The Last Guardian is part of the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus trilogy, that's kind of a vague claim. Regardless of what Ueda said, there's very little in this game to indicate that it even takes place in the same world as Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, whereas Ico and Shadow of the Colossus had very clear ties to each other. I don't think they actually found any good point where they could have attached Last Guardian to the rest of the series. So saying that it's part of the series is also difficult. You can see a lot of design inspirations from both Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, primarily Ico. So before I get into my criticisms of the game, I do want to preface this, that Last Guardian is a magical experience. From beginning to end, I have mostly positive things to say about the game. I just don't feel that it's worth $60. I don't understand where the 9 years of development came from. I know that development hell gets complicated. They lose programmers, they lose artists, they lose funding in some places, they gain it in others. Some people want to publish it, other people don't. You switch studios. There's a million things that can go wrong that cause a game like this to wind up in developer hell. And it was there for 9 years. And I think once you get past the initial excitement of the game and how beautifully animated Trico, the monster that is your companion, is, it really starts to show that development for this game was messy. First of all, the game is incredibly linear, which is especially disappointing after coming from Shadow of the Colossus, which, while yes, you kind of had to fight the Colossi in order, or at least I think you do. I never tried doing them out of order, so I guess I can't really honestly say that for sure. Shadow of the Colossus it's a technical achievement. It is a marvel what they managed to do on the PS2 with this game. The monsters are huge. They're incredibly well animated. The world is massive, and it's beautiful. It really pushed the PS2 hardware as far as it could go. And, in doing that, it did suffer in a lot of places. When the screen got busy, I remember there was one particular boss fight where there were geysers in an area, and man, the frame rate slowed to a crawl. But for what this game was, remember, I'm talking about Shadow of the Colossus right now, for what it was, on the PlayStation 2, we didn't care. And that frame rate, the way that they handled the frame rate drops was actually pretty smooth, so it didn't feel like it got choppy. Instead, it felt almost cinematic, where the game, slowed down a bit, and you got a good look at Wander. The game did have some issues, camera being one of them. Sometimes climbing on the Colossi could be frustrating, depending on which fight you were on. The world design was, and honestly, I can't actually say too much about the world design that's native, but Shadow of the Colossus was just wonderful, and critically speaking, probably the best out of the series. I think I prefer Eco to it, just by taste, but I can't for a moment critically say that Eco is a better game than Shadow of the Colossus. It's just the one that I like more because I prefer the puzzle platformer. And Last Guardian was like Eco, where it is a puzzle platformer. But unlike Eco, which had clever puzzles and large multi-room puzzles, Last Guardian never really did that. Last Guardian was really just, it would put a single objective in front of your face in every room and say, okay, go do that. And you would do that, and then you would move forward, or you would do that, and then you would have to hide behind Trico. Well, Trico does all the fighting for you. That's right. You don't actually do any combat yourself in Last Guardian. It's all left up to your monster, the Trico, and he just goes ape on any enemies that are in the area, and you kind of try and stay out of the way and not get kidnapped by them, much in the same way that the shadow creatures in Eco would kidnap Yorda. Back to it. This game, visually, I mean, it's got nice backgrounds and everything, but when you really start to look at it, this is something that could have come out on the PS3, with the exception of maybe Trico. He's very well animated. The AI for him is really, really, really good, but once you get past that, the level design, while pretty looking, is boring and straightforward. A lot of the mechanics of the puzzles are spotty. I remember there was one part of the game in particular where I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'd fallen through a hole in the floor and into a pool of water. And you could see Trico looking down the hole at you, and of course he couldn't fit. And there was a box over on a ledge that you could pull into the water and stand on. Now, I pulled this box down below the hole where Trico was, and I stood on the box, and I shouted for him to put down his tail, because you have some basic commands that you can give Trico. Well, they're more like suggestions, much like the floating controls, but we'll talk about that too. I like that you don't have full exact command over Trico. You two have known each other for a couple of hours. This was not initially a tame creature. You know, he didn't go to obedience school or anything. So learning to communicate with him is much like learning to communicate with a really stupid dog. Or a really smart cat. And that's not a jab at cats or dogs, by the way. I love animals, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed Last Guardian. If you like animals, like if you like birds, cats, or dogs, this thing is basically a combination of the three of them, and it's adorable, and it holds the game together despite all its flaws. But the puzzle design, I knew what I had to do. I pulled the box into the water, it floated, I stood on the box under the hole, and I shouted for Trico to, move around or maneuver his tail down the hole, because he's been clever in some points. He's caught me with his tail from falls. So I was like, this is easy. He can easily get his tail down, even if he can't get the rest of him down. And, I'll jump onto it and I'll climb up. Totally, totally easy. This is a part of the game that Perry had also gotten past, and she was staring at it while I was stuck in this room for like a good half hour, wondering why Trico wasn't doing what I needed him to do. And it turned out to be something very stupid. Trico hadn't gotten frustrated enough in that half hour where I was getting frustrated that he hadn't moved around enough on the wood to break a different hole to put his tail down. It was just, some of the puzzles are very poorly designed for how simple they are. I mean, it was a 2-step puzzle, and it was just terribly designed, and it feels like it wasn't actually 9 years of development hell. I feel like they designed Trico, and they went, wow, this is amazing. And then they did some backgrounds, and they made an eco-styled game, and they said, look at this. This is what we're making. And then that's when they ran out of ideas, and they weren't really sure what to do with it. And it explains why the story is so bad, because the story falls completely flat on its face at the end regarding the Master of the Valley, who's the kind of villain of the game. I say villain, but I don't know that he is, because we never learn anything about his motivations. We never learn anything about his personality. We're never given any understanding as to why the events of the game are taking place beyond some basic background that's explored during the game for why the boy and why the griffin wake up in this cave together. We don't understand, what drove them to that. I don't want to spoil the story. I don't want to talk about it, because I do think that everyone should play this game. I just don't think that you should buy it for $60. And I certainly don't think that you should expect it to be more than what it is. It is not Game of the Year. It's certainly the weakest out of Eco, Shadow of Colossus, and Last Guardian. And it really just took more of the area design ideas from Eco and then crawling on big things from Shadow of Colossus. But the frame rate in this game, I was talking about that like 10 minutes ago, the frame rate in Shadow of the Colossus. The frame rate in Last Guardian is just, it's inexcusable. Well, I'm going to use some bad language here. It's fucking inexcusable. This frame rate in this game slows to a crawl so often for no good reason. It is remarkably poorly optimized for a game that could have come out on the PS3. You can make an argument that it could have come out on the PS2. Seeing what they had done with Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, I mean, it's a good-looking game, but it's not that good looking. And the frame rate is just abysmal. And the camera is awful. As a game, the game mechanics are such a mess and such a failure. But as an experience, it's magical. And it's extremely memorable. And it's something that I'm glad that I played. I do recommend that you spend a weekend with it. Don't expect to play the best game ever. Expect to play through a fairy tale experience that'll last you 8 to 12 hours, depending on how bad you are with puzzles, A, and how unlucky you get with some of the RNG in whether or not you're going to solve the puzzle, B. And, spend a weekend on it, borrow it from a friend who purchased it and thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread. But don't take this out on the reviewer from IGN who gave it a 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10 is a very, very fair score, and the more I think about the game, probably higher than what I would give it. Remember that a review score like this, on a scale of 0 to 10 would mean that a 5 out of 10 means it does half of the game right. And that's about where Last Guardian stands. It does half of the game right. It's just, the game portion of the game is very bad. Mechanically, it's not fantastic. It has a lot of technical issues. The music is nothing too memorable. I can't think of a single track from the game. I can't. No idea. I still remember the Colossus music from Shadow of the Colossus and the menu music from the HD version of Eco. Very, very good music in those games. Last Guardian did not have that. All right, that's all. I hope you enjoyed. Disagree. I don't know. There's probably going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on this because there's a lot of fans who are hopped up on this game right now. But yeah, play it for what it is. Enjoy it for what it is. But please do not call it the best game of all time, best game of the year. Not even the best game in the series, guys. If it had come out on the PS2, I'd probably be more forgiving of the technical issues, but it didn't. If it had come out on the PS3, a lot of these technical issues still would be unacceptable. And this is a PS4 game. Yeah, poorly optimized one at that. But it's good. Okay, that's all. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care.